High-grade Geara Doga, full frontal use. Hey, what's up again, everybody? It's Robert, 184, 2Rs2Bs, Gundam Reviews.net, and it's totally fitting that Char's Zaku is going to be making an appearance here at the beginning of this episode, because part of Gundam Unicorn and its appeal is its old-school connections to the original series, Zeta, and everything that we've seen since. However, they do a very good job of introducing Full Frontal as the reincarnation of Char, without fully explaining it, I suppose, through the first 5 episodes. If you've read the books, you probably know a lot more. Nonetheless, where did he come from? Well, I'd imagine that he had a mobile suit before he got into that cool Shinanju, and basically Bandai, with this online premium item, have decided to just sort of recreate that, take an old-school Geara Doga from Char's counterattack, and change it into his custom colors. But is it going to be red? Well, let's find out when we open it up. Even though the mold is old, this is a 2012 release, with a nominal price you can see there of 2,000 yen. This is from Bandai both in theory and in practice, and you can see the same color art there that you've got on the front there. There's the name bar there. They've got Senyoki in Japanese, but they're going to go with full frontal use there in terms of the English. And this wasn't in Gundam Unicorn, but it is a mobile suit variation, similar to the Delta Gundam, and something that's still pretty cool, just filling in a missing piece, I suppose, of an already mysterious piece of Gundam lore. So I'm curious to see just how many of you this kit appeals to. I really like the idea of this. Going back to the original with First Gundam, it was always cool to look at the master grades on the shelves and see the black tri-stars and Zaku 2s and Zaku 1s, Rambaral and a Zaku 1 kind of thing. And it sort of shows you that even though they became aces in their own right and were in their great custom mobile suits that we came to know and love, that they had to start out somewhere. So it sort of makes sense that they're going to go ahead and do that and take something that happened in, 0093, and throw it back, or take the stuff from Unicorn and throw it back to 0093, I suppose. And we got to see a little bit more of where Full Frontal came from. It was a grunt suit at the time, but you're going to see that it has enough of his custom touches on there, starting with the sleeves, and we'll see what else in terms of weapons and everything like that. It just seems like it's a lot of fun in carrying on a long, proud tradition that Bandai has had. This is the shortest box tour I think you're ever going to see, because on the front and back, either of the long sides, you're just going to see that. The Japanese name bar at the bottom and the English one on the top, and you've already seen these sides here. And not to mention that just as a kit, it's always sort of cool. I've always enjoyed the Char's counterattack mobile suits, and it's great that you can get them all in HGUC, high-grade Universal Century, and with Unicorn just having even more throwbacks and some new great creations. Anyway, these are the kinds of things that make high-grade fans and Universal Century fans in general a lot of fun, and I can't wait to build my first Geara Doga and future Zaku. So inside the box we go, as we can see what you're going to be getting, and sure enough, Shinanju red, I say thee nay. It's going to be Char's pink and Char's red there, to go along with some clear yellow and some special sleeves like seals there. Some more Char pink and red there, and then when you go to the inside, you're going to be getting some black or very dark gray. 2 small plates in either of those bags there. You're also going to be getting a larger dark gray plate, and it looks like a special manual there that's going to be just for the Full Frontal custom, it looks like. And there it is, the kit that this was first modeled after. Before looking at the plates, it's a good idea to see where this came from, and it's the Geara Doga Resin Schneider Custom, which is from Char's counterattack. She was an ace, which meant that she got her own blue custom one. It wouldn't do for her to be running around in a red one, I suppose. And that means, while there were green, grunty, Zaku-ish Geara Dogas running around all over the place, she was out there with a commander's antenna, and Full Frontal obviously would have been a commander back then as well, which again explains why he had such cool military-like striping down there on his sleeves, if you want to put it that way. This kit's from 2009, and taking a look back at the high-grade Universal Century lineup, it was close enough to the releases for all the Unicorn kits, and obviously with Char's counterattack having such close ties to Unicorn, you wonder if they didn't have this well in mind, or at least the planning for the possibility of these kind of kit releases in the future. And it's worth noting here that she's going to have 2 tones of blue on here, a darker blue and a lighter blue, for the shoulders and the bottom of the feet and things like that. And that's going to come into play once you actually see the colors of the plastic and the very manly Char red, no matter what anybody else is going to tell you. So starting with the 8 plates, you're going to be getting that Char pink, but it's a newer version of the Char pink there. You're also going to be getting some very bright yellow there in the piping that's going to go on the waist and the all-important mono-eyed head there. You're also going to have some of the Char red there for the thrusters, it looks like. That's going to match what you're going to see on future plates there, but you can see that they're big, bulky parts in general. And you can see that they're going to have things like thrusters on the inside that you have to paint if you really want to bring those to life, so they're not going to look fantastic right out of the box necessarily. And you are also going to have some additional colors down there, just in terms of the clear yellow, which is going to make the melee weapons look a lot cooler. The B plate has more of that same famous pink there, and you can see that once you take a look at the actual add-in manual, that they're going to show off the plates, and some of these parts are not going to be used, they're X'd out. But you can see some big details there on the shield. They've got a very cool Neo Z on there, things etched into it, so you don't have to necessarily put a decal on. You could actually just go ahead and paint that up if you were a pro. And you also have two versions here of the head. This one's going to get X'd because it doesn't have the commander's fin in it, and this one does, so this is going to get used down there. But more importantly, if you want to take a look at the sleeves, these two parts are not going to be used. As you'll see from a future plate, they're actually going to have their own custom replacements. Char Red makes its appearance here, and you can see that it's quite different from the pink on the outer body. Should be more similar to what you're seeing on the inside of Char's classic Zaku 2, although this toy doesn't necessarily have the perfect right colors on it. Nonetheless, all of this C-plate is going to get used in Full Frontal's version there. Can't believe I haven't made a joke about his name yet so far. But you've got the large parts there for the bottom of the feet and the waist skirts. You've got this armor part there. The shoulder is looking very cool and spiky as it should on the left side of a Zaku, to go along with the shield to offset it on the other side. And even though I said before that there's not necessarily perfect thrusters, and some of them look like there, you can still see that there's going to be a lot of these ones in the red, which should do a nice offset when they're actually attached on to the backpack or limbs in pink. The D plate is going to have a lot of X's on it. When you look at that little paper insert, you can see that a lot of these things are going to be used, and there's some great looking piping over there. It's just the kind of thing that if you add some lining to it is going to look fantastic. The parts there for the inside of the head, some great looking HGUC hands over there, but it's going to be the beam machine gun over here that's pretty much going to be all omitted, because Full Frontal says there's no way I'm using the same weapon that even a Neo Zeon Ace was using at the time. I've got to have something a bit more futuristic. Two identical E-plates are a little bit surprising just the way that these are made up, but then again they're ABS and they're not using too much plastic there, and just duplicating by having two of them there. And you can see that these are going to make up parts of the inner frame as well as some of the weapons there, and it looks like the insides of the forearms, which again are going to get capped with something unique here. Now, how great would it be if somebody in the comments down below made a list of the Zaku and all of its descendants, some very cool ones, including in Sentinel. But anyway, starting with the Zaku one and moving on, after the Geara Doga, there was going to be the Geara Zulu introduced in Unicorn. A very cool take, and certainly a modernized take on the whole mono-eye grunt idea. If you take a look at that HGUC kit, you would notice that it was going to have some additional parts sticking out over there. Those have just been omitted for this. But whereas all of the other parts clearly came from the Geara Doga and were labeled as such, this one is going to be Geara Zulu, so there it is, Full Frontal ahead of the game. He's going to have this cool looking weapon down there to put on the back, not to mention a much better looking weapon there, and some extra ammo clips, which should be a lot of fun for all. It does just seem a little bit strange that even though they omitted this part from the Geara Zulu, that pretty much everything on this side of the plate could have been cut off because it's just going to be wasted X plastic as well, it seems. And finally, if you're going to judge a man by his cufflinks, well, you might as well have some pretty cool sleeves on there. Because what are you going to be getting here? You've got a G plate here, 1/144th Geara Doga Unicorn version. This one is listed as. So we've got Geara Zulu and we've got Geara Doga Unicorn to go along with the regular resin Schneider parts that we've already seen. And you can see that you're going to be getting some custom parts down there. The most important one is that you've got these sleeves here that you can paint up in white. He didn't deserve gold at the time, I suppose, in Char's counterattack. But if you wanted to go paint those up, I'm sure that there's lots of tricks out there on YouTube. People showing you how to do it right. But for lazy people like me, they also include some seals. Which you can see here are going to be in white as mentioned. You're also going to be getting the pink parts for the all-important mono eyes and camera lenses there. Some additional striping, gonna have to check out where that goes on. And on the shield, even though they've got the nice etching in there, and Resin Schneider's, she would have had a yellow one there to go on the blue. Here you've got the white on black to go on it. And anyway, I can't wait to see how this is going to look. And for these seals, I'm sure that a lot of people have gone to the trouble to paint it. Anyway, I'd love to hear your responses just for everybody that's been building these unicorn kits so far. How many of you are sealing it up and how many of you are painting it? And is there a really nice, easy way that you could suggest for beginners like me and others to check out? So just for a quick look through this manual that I've been talking about, it's 20 meters, so a lot bigger than the old school Zaku 2s. Looking great there in blue, looks great in green as well. Here you can see the color splash pages. That is looking fantastic. The beam machine gun, the shield looking cool, all sorts of extra weapons that are going to be in there. And you've also got the beam sword and the axe looking great. You can see all the kits down there, well not all of them, but the main ones from Char's counterattack. Amazing that you can recreate that whole movie on your shelf. And you've got the color splash page just showing you how to attach all the weapons and mount it on an action base too. And looking at the inside is not necessarily that useful. You can see here the A, B, C, D, and 2 of the E plates in the ABS. But more importantly, once you start to look at this, you can see that they're going to lay out not all the plates, but just the ones that have X's, the G plate here being unique, I suppose, and they're going to show you how to order the missing parts down there if you're missing anything. And then what they're going to tell you to do is basically ignore step 3 back there, or steps 3 and 10. Basically look at them carefully. When you're building resin Schneiders, you use that as your main recipe book, but then you're going to be inserting all of these other little steps down there, and you can see where you're going to put the seals. It looks like the front and back of the wrists as you attach these onto the lower parts. Same thing when you go to the back, you're going to build up the arms a little differently, and the weapons are going to have to give you the Geara Zulu directions there, because if you use just that one, it's not going to tell you how to use all of the cool weapons at this guy's disposal. So it's been a lot of fun to unbox, both because it's Geara Doga, which for me, like I said, I've never built, but also just to see the Char colors come to life. I'm not sure how crazy I'd be about this kit if it was going to be actually done up in Shinonju or Sazabi Red. Anyway, to see it here in its dual tones of Char Pink and Char Red just seems great, but at the same time, it just makes me want to go back and build the Char's Counterattack green and blue Geara Dogas all the more. But nonetheless, it's got a few extra bonuses between the Geara Zulu plate and the other sleeves ability that you can just put those on there. Anyway, looking forward to putting it all together, so stick around. I'll have a full review of this, parts and MS, all of that. And anyway, why don't you let me know what you think of this? Is it something that you want to get your hands on? Too expensive online? Nice and easy to get? Anyway, I'd love to hear your experiences. And yes, when you see those colors, can't wait to see more. Thanks for watching, everybody. See ya. Really? You had to take the joke in that direction? My name is that irresistible?